Great to be here with you guys today. It didn't have to be like this. This game could have been over with going into the third quarter, but no, yeah, they had to put us through it. Stephanie, you had to put us through it. You had Caitlin Clark coming out on an absolute heater. 40-piece inbound. 40-point triple-double on the way.
Every fake injury claim, every double standard, every person waiting for her to fail, and turned it into one of the loudest statements of the WNBA season. Because against the Chicago Sky, Clark did not just put up numbers. She put up history. 32 points, 10 assists, 7 rebounds, 40 minutes, overtime, a Fever win.
Oh my God. Oh my God. That's the only way I can describe that game. Oh my God. The Indiana Fever should have won that game by 40. They could have won that game by 40. They win it by 8. They win it by 8. Caitlin Clark was... What was she in that game? Let's look at the box score here. Caitlin Clark was 3 rebounds off a 32-point triple-double. Aaliyah Boston had 34. I think that is that a career high for Aaliyah, or 2 off a career high. Kelsey Mitchell, dear Lord, what went wrong with you today? What was wrong with you today, Kelsey? What was wrong with you?
And beside her, Aaliyah Boston went nuclear too, dropping 34 points and 12 rebounds.
Aaliyah Boston, 34 and 12, big games from those two. We have 66 points from Aaliyah Boston and Kelsey Mitchell combined. That fourth quarter, she spoon-fed Aaliyah Boston points. Spoon-fed her points. Here. And to AB's credit, she converted on most of her opportunities. Salute, AB. Salute.
That matters because this was not just another big night. This was the first time in WNBA history that 2 teammates both had 30-point double-doubles in the same game. Let that sink in. Not one star carrying the whole thing alone. Not one player putting up empty stats in a loss. 2 Fever stars on the same night in the same game against a rival, making league history together. And the timing could not have been better because the internet was already trying to build a new story around Caitlin Clark. One viral post said Clark is not a true point guard. Another compared her to Olivia Miles. Another said all Clark did was choke in back-to-back national championship games. Then another post tried to push the idea that Clark was struggling so badly that fans should expect some fake injury next. That is the part that makes this game so wild.
I really wanted to give her grace. After today, I'm done. I am convinced, bro. Guys, the Caitlin Clark that was at Iowa that broke the scoring record is not the Caitlin Clark we have today. The Caitlin Clark that was shooting logo threes. You can't see me. That Caitlin Clark, that version of Caitlin Clark is gone. That version of Caitlin Clark is no longer alive. Because this Caitlin Clark is not going to have any emotion. I don't know what the hell. I don't know. Maybe she do need to get traded. I ain't lying. Bro.
Because for weeks, people have been trying to turn every Clark moment into a takedown. If she scores, they say she shoots too much. If she passes, they say she is scared. If she shows emotion, they say she is out of control. If another player does the same thing, suddenly it is passion. They see one player celebrate, talk, gesture, and get praised for being tough. Then Clark reacts to contact, throws up a hand, or gets frustrated with a no call, and suddenly everyone acts like the league is falling apart. But that is also why the Chicago game felt bigger than the scoreboard. Clark got hit, Clark got frustrated, Clark picked up a technical, Stephanie White picked up one too. The whole game had that edge where you could feel it turning from basketball into a statement. And then instead of shrinking, Clark got better. That is what the critics never seem to understand.
Caitlin Clark with some sick handles in this game. right here, going to come down the court. I mean, what are we talking about? Look at her hit this Jordan fadeaway, turn around fadeaway. I mean, that's sick. That was nice with the one-handed fadeaway. How about Caitlin Clark with
in that
some,
second quarter, and that's
sick passing? Look at that. Into Michaela Timpson, one dribble. I got to tell you, the one thing I want to see.
You can mock the logo threes. You can question the turnovers. You can say she is not a true point guard. You can compare her to every new guard who has a hot week. But when the game gets loud, Clark keeps bending the floor in ways most players simply cannot. She is not just passing to the open player. She is creating the open player. She is dragging two defenders with her. She is forcing help. She is making the weak side move. She is making the bigs run harder because they know the ball can arrive at any second. And that is where Aaliyah Boston comes in, because Boston's 34-12 was not some random stat line. It was the other half of the story. For so long, the Fever conversation has been treated like it has to be Caitlin against everyone. Caitlin against the league. Caitlin against her coach. Caitlin against her teammates. Caitlin against the refs. But this game showed what the Fever are supposed to be. Clark and Boston together. One outside force. One inside force. One player bending the defense with range and pace. One player punishing the defense in the paint. That is why those viral graphics matter. The double-double poster, the 32 and 34 side by side. The history has been made. Posts. Fans are not just celebrating a win. They are seeing the blueprint. This is what Indiana can be when they stop fighting their own identity. And that is why the cartoon saying Caitlin Clark runs the Fever now went viral too. Obviously, it is exaggerated. It is a meme. It is not real life. Stephanie White is still the coach. Clark is still a player. But the reason people share that image is because it speaks to a feeling. Fans believe this team looks best when everything runs through Clark's pace, Clark's vision, and Clark's pressure. Not because she needs to take every shot, but because every defense reacts to her first. And when Indiana leans into that, Boston eats. Shooters get cleaner looks. The tempo rises. The crowd wakes up. The whole building changes. That is what happened against Chicago. The Sky kept fighting. They pushed the game into overtime. They did not just roll over. They looked like a team finally learning how to weaponize it. And if Clark and Boston keep building like this, the WNBA might have a much bigger problem than viral memes. Indiana might have found its championship formula.
Cheryl Reeve has broken the internet in the Indiana Fever fan base. I'm here to tell you guys. Cheryl Reeve did a press conference yesterday about her young superstar, Olivia Miles. And I'm telling you right now, she did not hold back. Now, one of the biggest things we've been talking about, especially when I go on Jason Whitlock, is we talk about how Stephanie White somehow, some way got rid of the pick and roll. Now, I'm here to tell you, the pick and roll came back. But did it come back because the world was talking about Stephanie White getting rid of the pick and roll?
She's ruining Caitlin Clark. 4 words that are tearing WNBA fans apart right now. And they're not aimed at a rival team, not at the refs. They're aimed at the one person who's supposed to protect her, her own head coach, Stephanie White.
The pick and roll was one of the effective positions and one of the effective plays that worked for the Indiana Fever. That is what made Aaliyah Boston and Caitlin Clark a double-headed monster, baby. Now, why on earth would you want to not play that play? Why would you want to just ostracize and get rid of the pick and roll? Make it make sense, because I'm not getting why she would ultimately do that. Because to me, a good coach knows greatness when they see it, but it don't seem like Stephanie White really know greatness. Now, Olivia Miles has been doing her thing. Now, Cheryl Reeve did a press conference yesterday, and in that press conference, she spoke about her young superstar. Now, she didn't throw any more names out there. She didn't say Kelsey Mitchell. She didn't say, any other stars from the team or nothing like that. She specifically talked about the way she played her player and how great her player is.
For weeks, fans have watched Clark get benched, blamed, and buried under the worst slump of her career. And now they think they've found the proof that none of it had to happen. It's sitting 600 miles north in Minnesota, and the comparison is brutal.
Great to be here with you guys today. It's incredibly glaring, the difference between an elite level coach and some run-of-the-mill hack who couldn't cut it at the collegiate level, got fired from Vanderbilt, jumps to the WNBA to ride Alyssa Thomas's coattails, jumps to the Indiana Fever to ride Caitlin Clark's coattails. The difference between a coach like Cheryl Reeve and a coach like Stephanie White, wow. Cheryl Reeve, they had a large turnover on that roster. They lost Alana Smith, they lost Bridget Carlton, they lost Natisha Heidemann, they lost Jessica Shepard. Nafisa Collier hasn't even played a single game yet this year. Yet, the Minnesota Lynx have the best record in the league. The Minnesota Lynx, led by rookie Olivia Miles. The Minnesota Lynx have Natasha Howard looking like an MVP. And Cheryl Reeve completely revamped that offense to best tailor Olivia Miles' style of play while Nafisa Collier is out.
Let's go back to the moment that lit the fuse. Saturday night. National TV, the Fever getting run off the floor by the Portland Fire, and the cameras caught Stephanie White doing something you almost never see a coach do to a franchise player. Finger pointed in Clark's face, slapping her own knee, lighting her up during a timeout in front of millions. Clark looked away, sipped her water, then fired back, hands up, talking right over her coach. Seconds later, she was benched, pulled for a rookie, and for a lot of fans, that was the last straw, because this wasn't a one-night thing. Clark is in a free fall, 11 points a game, 29% shooting over 3 games. They killed Caitlin Clark, one post screamed, barely recognizable. The most electric player the sport has ever seen suddenly looked lost out there, and that's when fans started asking the dangerous question, what if it isn't Caitlin? What if the problem is the system she's been dropped into? The offense? The role? The coach? What if Stephanie White is the one breaking her?
Then we look at the Indiana Fever. Stephanie White. We have new players on our team, but we have a nucleus that's been with each other for quite some time. Aaliyah Boston, Caitlin Clark, Sophie Cunningham, Lexi Hull, Michaela Timpson now, Damaris Dantas. So there is some familiarity on this team. But Stephanie White, unable to adjust, unable to adapt. She's trying to run the Connecticut Sun offense with not the Connecticut Sun roster. She's trying to turn a V12, Caitlin Clark, into an inline 4. She's trying to turn a dirt bike into a tricycle. We're not seeing pick and rolls. We're not best utilizing Aaliyah Boston's skill set being the roller. We're running ISO with Kelsey Mitchell. We're running ISO with Caitlin Clark. We're not setting her any screens. We're not setting her any off-ball screens. And defensively, switching everything. Oh, wow, we had one good game before we didn't switch everything. Wow. Color me shocked.
So people went looking around the league for an answer, and they found one almost immediately, because there's another young guard out there going through the exact same thing. The pressure, the mistakes, the brutal learning curve that hits every rookie. Her name is Olivia Miles, and her coach is Cheryl Reeve, the most respected, most feared voice in the entire WNBA. Here's what makes the comparison sting. Reeve isn't pretending her young guard is a finished product. She's not throwing her to the wolves and pointing fingers when it goes wrong. The Lynx are building a shell around Miles, holding her accountable, but backing her up, teaching her where to be, when to rotate, who to trust, how to survive the pressure. In other words, doing the job.
Cheryl Reeve came out in a press conference and heaped praise upon Olivia Miles. Said, nah, just let her play. I trust my point guard's instinct. I trust my point guard's decision making. While you have Stephanie White, who does the complete opposite. The point guard makes a turnover, she's quick to yank. The point guard gets 3 quick assists, she's quick to yank. The point guard makes 3 straight threes, she's quick to yank. While Cheryl Reeve is saying, play your game, play.
And Reeve has never been afraid to say what everyone else won't. She once took the biggest fine in WNBA history rather than stay quiet about what's broken in this league. So when fans line up Reeve's blueprint next to what's happening in Indiana, they don't need a quote. The tape does the talking. One coach is building her star up. The other looks like she's burning hers down. And here's the part that really stings for Fever fans. Stephanie White and Cheryl Reeve aren't even enemies. They've stood on the same side before. Both fined for ripping the league's officiating, both fighting the same fight. So this was never a rivalry, it was never a grudge, which somehow makes the contrast even louder, because if the gold standard for coaching a young superstar is right there to copy, why does it look like Indiana is doing the exact opposite with the most important player the sport has ever had?
Now, before Stephanie White was head coach of the Indiana Fever, she said some things like this about Caitlin Clark. The difference between the two, one actually practices what they preach. One actually, you see their words translate into actions, while the other one's words translate into crossed arms and tweaking on the sideline.
So that's the real question buried under all the noise. Forget the slump for a second, forget the benching. Is Caitlin Clark the problem, or has she simply had the wrong coach standing next to her this whole time? Because one thing is impossible to ignore. Somewhere in Minnesota, a young guard is being built into the future. And in Indiana, the biggest star in the game looks like she's being torn down. So I'll ask you straight up. Is Stephanie White ruining Caitlin Clark? Drop your answer below. I'm reading every single one.
You want to be like Candace Parker, if you want to be like Nneka Ogwumike, if you want to be like Caitlin Clark, if you want to be like Sue Bird, we don't want little girls thinking it's actually bad to be one of those women.
Absolutely.
Because this is how you're going to be treated, good or bad, right? You want it to really be about the basketball. We're supposed to be appreciating the greatness of her ability to play the game at a really high level. We can still have these conversations, but ultimately figuring out a way to make sure that the W is moving in a positive direction and growing. Fan, coach, media representative, that has to be the ultimate goal. Otherwise, anything you're doing or saying that could be hurting the game and having people want to pay attention to the W less, that's a problem.
5 flagrant fouls. That's how many times Caitlin Clark has been knocked to the floor this season. And here's the number the WNBA is praying you never do the math on. That's 17% of every flagrant foul in the entire league. One player, one target. For months, players stayed quiet. Coaches looked away. Reporters called it part of the game. Then a 5-time NBA champion stepped up to a microphone and refused to play along.
Wow. So it looks like the NBA champion that played with Kobe Bryant of Los Angeles Lakers, big time shots made, big time clutch shots all throughout his career. Derek Fisher has stepped up and addressed a lot of the nasty hate and some racism that it appears Caitlin Clark has been facing since she stepped into this league. The pure hate, the jealousy, all of it. He did not hesitate.
Derek Fisher didn't call it hazing. He didn't call it toughness. He pointed at something a lot of people were too scared to name. And once you hear it, you can't take it back.
The sacrifices that they knew were going to be made in order for the league to take the step forward that it needed to take to get to where they are now. I think sometimes young athletes, young people can come across as though they aren't as appreciative or grateful for those that have kind of paved the way before them. And so when you come in and not just the way you carry yourself in terms of feeling like, hey, I'm the new king now. That's how like Ant Edwards brings that energy.
Big time. And I love it, by the way.
The dream team in 92 in Barcelona, Michael Jordan was on the rise, but Magic Johnson was still kind of, trying to remind him, nah, bro, this has been my league for a while. Like, I'm not just going to hand over the baton. You're going to have to take it from me. And so some of that energy, like, I think Caitlin Clark plays the game in a way and carries herself in a way as though, like, she knows that she is the future of basketball. She doesn't necessarily say that, but she plays that way and has that type of energy. And so, yeah, I think it's been extreme on both sides of the like-dislike conversation.
Start with the part nobody can spin, the tape. Clark hasn't been bumped. She's been hammered. 5 flagrant fouls, and 4 of them from a single team, the Chicago Sky. Out of every dangerous over-the-line hit in the whole league, almost 1 in 5 has Caitlin Clark's name on it. One night, she shot 13 free throws and still got mugged on plays the refs flat out missed.
It looks like Derek Fisher went on 97.1 The Fan, and he addressed a lot of these things that Caitlin Clark has been facing and how nasty it's been, man. Let's be clear, man. This stuff has been nasty work. We've been watching it from day one. We've been watching her be targeted. We got all these Carrie champions and all these people going out spewing these lies, talking about she's getting special treatment. No, that's Asia Wilson, who shoots 89 free throws a game. That's Paige Beckers, who you can't breathe next to without getting a foul. That's Brianna Stewart, who shoots 18 free throws and still goes in press conferences and blasts the refs. Not Caitlin Clark. She don't get the type of treatment those people get. We got to keep it real here.
Fans saw it. They posted the slow motion clips. They begged the league to protect her. And the league? Mostly silence. A shrug. A quote about how she needs to adjust. But here's where this stops being a story about fouls and starts being a story about everyone who let it slide. Because it wasn't just rival teams, it was her own sideline. Saturday night, national TV, the Fever getting blown out by the Portland Fire, and the cameras caught the moment that lit the internet on fire. Head coach Stephanie White, finger pointed straight in Clark's face, slapping her own knee, tearing into her franchise player in front of millions. At first, Clark just looked away and drank her water. Then she snapped back, hands up, talking right over her coach. Seconds later, she was benched, pulled for a rookie, sat down for the whole country to see. And the timing could not have been worse. This was already the coldest stretch of Clark's career. 11 points a game, 29% shooting over 3 games. The doubters who'd been waiting for a crack smelled blood. They killed Caitlin Clark. One viral post read, "Barely recognizable." Add it all up. The targeting, the benching, the slump, the silence. And it looked like the whole basketball world had quietly agreed to let the most popular player in the sport sink. And that's what makes the silence so strange. Because Caitlin Clark isn't just another name on a roster, she's the reason arenas that used to sit half empty are suddenly sold out. She's the reason half these games are on national TV at all. She's the engine, the golden goose.
Let's take a look at what Derek Fisher had to say.
No,
We don't live in that world.
Their experience has been like to see someone else treated differently than they feel that they have been treated. That's also mixed into even some of the WNBA players as Caitlin Clark was coming into the league. Like, hey,
That is and this is talking about, speaking of to the jealousy. Okay, they saw her coming in, selling out arenas, getting on national TV, all of this stuff. Remember when everybody wasn't flying private yet, and Caitlin Clark had to because she's so much more popular than all these other people. They said, "Oh no, it was a big problem." But then she eventually got them all put on PJs, and they still was hating. They still were jealous. They were jealous that she was the reason for a lot of it. Keep cooking, Derek.
hey, well, we've been a part of this league. Like, was coming into the league. Like, hey, well, we've been a part of this league for a long time and never gotten some of the benefits and things that you are experiencing.
And she walked
enjoying,
right into it.
and that she walked right into. Nobody is saying she isn't creating new energy, passion, support for the league, ticket sales, viewership. Like, that's clear. You can't argue the numbers even in terms of her stats.
And the league was watching opponents take run after run at its biggest meal ticket and saying nothing. You don't have to love her game to see how crazy that is. But somebody finally did say something, and it wasn't who anyone expected. Derek Fisher isn't a hot take guy. 5 NBA titles, years spent coaching in this exact league. So when he talked, the room went quiet, and he didn't tiptoe. Fisher said the hate aimed at Clark has almost nothing to do with Clark. His words, it's almost like people are trying to find reasons to dislike her, when in reality, she's literally never said any of the stuff that other people have to say.
Now, the thing when he said that is, all of the things he listed is why the WNBA should have treated her a certain way, that they have failed and dropped the ball, and everybody's been calling them out, letting it be known the WNBA fumbled Caitlin Clark. When they watched her be the most flagrantly fouled player, they did nothing. When they watched her get targeted, they did nothing. They have done everything they can to actually minimize her. So the things that he's listing are just a few of the reasons why they should have gotten behind her and provided a push that they have failed to do. She's dealing with all the hate and negativity, and the league hasn't even gotten behind her.
Sit with that for a second. A 5-time champion just told the basketball world that Caitlin Clark is being punished for things she never did. Not her words, not her attitude, just the attention she drags into every building, the cameras, the money, the resentment that follows the one player carrying a whole league on national TV. Fisher said the quiet part out loud, and he basically dared anyone inside the WNBA to call him a liar. Nobody did. So how did Clark answer all of it? The fouls, the bench, the slump, the whispers. Monday night, 4.3 seconds on the clock, tie game. Clark caught it, rose up from 31 feet, way behind the line, and drilled it. Dagger. Fever win, 78-76. No speech, no clapback. Just the loudest answer in sports. A bucket that went straight through the net. Derek Fisher says the league has been letting this happen to her. Caitlin Clark just reminded everyone exactly why they can't afford to keep doing it. So here's what I want to know. Is she really being targeted, or is this just the price of being the biggest star the game has ever seen? Tell me below. I'm reading every single one.
So, yeah, if you guys didn't know, Caitlin Clark was sick in this game. Caitlin Clark was sick. So we're going to be reacting to a little bit of James Boyd's interview with Caitlin Clark right here. And she came out, I thought she had a really good second half. Like she had 10 points, 3 assists, and it was timely. There was she had some timely scores in that second half.
Caitlin Clark threw up at halftime. Not nerves, not a cramp. She tried to eat a little applesauce. It came right back up. And then, in her own words, everything else in her stomach came up with it.
Can you take us through what happened at halftime?
Yeah, I mean, a little sick, but I don't know. I tried to eat some applesauce and then it just came up, and then everything else in my stomach also came up. So I thought I was gonna stay down, and then I found a trash can, thank God, and I haven't puked that much in a really long time. So, but then I felt fine. I felt light, so I was running around feeling good in the second half, but I feel okay. Obviously, I'm losing my voice a little bit, but I'll be good.
Most players take the rest of that night off. Clark found a trash can, pulled herself together, and walked back out against the second best team in the league. Then she went and buried Angel Reese all over again. So before you read one more headline about Caitlin Clark falling apart, watch what she did while she was literally sick. Let's back up because the story was already written before the ball went up. The Fever had just lost 2 in a row, first to the Golden State Valkyries, then a 20-point beatdown from the Portland Fire. And after that Portland loss, a sideline moment between Clark and Coach Stephanie White got clipped and shared about 10,000 times. Suddenly, every outlet had the exact same take. A rift. A locker room problem. A team playing slow, boring basketball and bleeding viewers. Indiana walked into June 4th at 4-4, buried under a week of bad press, with everybody waiting for the collapse.
And greetings from Cambridge Fieldhouse in downtown Indy, where tonight the Fever begin their Commissioner's Cup title defense as they host the Atlanta Dream.
And Clark's answer to all of it was almost boring. She said she was not reading any of it. She called the scrutiny exactly what it was: noise.
Kaylin, you're used to being the eye of the storm and a lot of external noise and whatnot. How is this week? How are you feeling about this week? It seems kind of loud.
Yeah, I've got that question from a lot of people. A lot of people have called me and asked how I am, and I said, "What do you mean? I'm great." I think a lot of self-reflection for everybody. Like, you look yourself in the mirror and you find ways to get better. That's certainly what I did.
She said she spent the week playing Catan, playing Scrabble, going to dinner with friends, and watching Game 1 of the finals.
And I know me and Kareem were having this conversation yesterday. Usually you're playing and you have day off and you're playing, and I think obviously losing by 20 and, having 5 days for everybody to talk about the way we played maybe wasn't to the best for us. But I think one of the best pieces of advice I've ever gotten in life is, everything's a two-day story. People are just gonna be on to the next, whether you play good, whether you play bad. And, say we come out here and play great tonight, well, we can't get too high. We have New York on Saturday or whatever day that is. I don't really have the days of the week correct. So I think for us, it's, take a day at a time. But personally, I'm doing great. I don't really read that stuff. Like, I know everybody can have an opinion, and people make me aware. I have to be aware of things that are going on, but I'm not sitting on Twitter or social media reading those things. And, obviously everybody's entitled to their own opinion, but I think the opinions I care about are, my teammates, the people in the locker room, the front office, this organization, my family, my friends. We have a tight-knit circle, but I'm doing great. Like, I played a lot of Catan this week, played a lot of Scrabble, hung out with some friends last night, went to dinner, and watched Game 1 of the finals, which was pretty fun, and then watched a lot of film. But doing well, and more than anything, excited to get back out there and play. I know this group has really been itching, and we had some good days of practice, but we're ready to just go out there and play again.
While the internet wrote her obituary, she watched film and waited. Then June 4th handed her a stage. Here's the part the rivalry crowd does not want to hear. Angel Reese finished with 11 points and 10 rebounds. Scroll past it fast, and that looks like a clean double-double. Sit with it for 1 second, and it falls apart. 4 of 9 shooting. A game high, 4 turnovers, more than anybody on either team. And those 11 points came on the same night Atlanta's entire offense cratered to a season low.
Today, Angel Reese chokes, shrinks, crumbles under the spotlight against the Indiana Fever. Caitlin Clark, in her professional career, has now lost 1 time against Angel Reese. In fact, ever since Angel Reese followed Caitlin Clark around in that national championship game, doing the John Cena "You Can See Me," Angel Reese has only beaten Caitlin Clark 1 time since that moment. It's no doubt, folks, the biggest game on everybody's calendar is going up against the Indiana Fever and playing against Caitlin Clark.
Reese did not anchor anything. She went down with the ship. Off the bench, Natasha Hines-Allen physically bullied her in just 16 minutes, grabbing 7 rebounds and making her life miserable every time they shared the floor. A double-double in a season-low blowout, where you also turn it over more than anyone on the court, is not a good night. It is a stat line that reads okay on paper and dies the second you watch the tape.
But a certain somebody in the WNBA, not only is it their big, it's the Super Bowl, it's the ball drop on New Year's Eve, it's, you name it, circled, that's the game. Or at least that's been the game. That's the game I'm gonna have a Barbie night. That's the game I'm gonna make up some fake monkey noises. I'm gonna do my best to try to chase clout from that game the best that I can. But Angel Reese wanted no part of that last night. Oof. But she chased something else. Shout out to the Pope. She chased some bloopies. Oof. Angel Reese, rough game last night for Angel Reese.
Clark is now 5-1 against Reese. That is not a rivalry. That is a pattern. Now look at what Clark did while sick. 17 points, 8 assists, 7 rebounds, a near triple-double. And her shooting was actually cold. 6 of 17 from the field, 2 of 8 from 3. So why did Clark call this one of the best floor games she has played in a really long time? Because she stopped forcing and started conducting. She read the defense. She picked her moments. She guarded Ryan Howard one-on-one and put real pressure on the ball after a week of people questioning her defense.
One of the biggest The biggest rivalry, the biggest matchup that the WNBA can offer, the Indiana Fever versus the Atlanta Dream, and Angel Reese was a no-call, no-show. A no-call, no-show. It wasn't just her. Ryan Howard, no-call, no-show. Alicia Gray, no-call, no-show. Jordan Canada, no-call. But nobody cares about those other players, right? Nobody cares about those other three.
She sat down with Coach Breanne January, watched clips, then went out and helped hold Atlanta to a season low. Other guards disappear when the shot is not falling. Clark posted a near triple-double while emptying her stomach at halftime. And this is where the obituary writers missed the real point. Indiana did not need Clark to score 40. Kelsey Mitchell went off for 25 on 11 of 15 shooting, crossed 5,000 career points, and ripped off a personal 11-0 run in the third quarter that flipped a one-point game into a blowout. Aaliyah Boston added 19 points and hit 3 of 4 from deep, stretching Atlanta until it snapped. Mitchell and Boston combined for 44 on a night Clark struggled to shoot, and the Fever still won going away. Atlanta tried to take Clark's scoring out of the game. Boston and Mitchell made them pay for it anyway. And remember that supposed rift with Stephanie White. In the third quarter, the two of them chest bumped. Clark laughed about it after, joked that White has had a lot of surgery so she could have hurt her, and said she loves playing for a coach that fired up. So much for the fracture. Here is the bottom line. June 4th opened the Commissioner Cup, the same trophy Indiana won last season. The Fever were 4-4 on a losing streak, getting written off with a starting point guard throwing up at halftime. They walked out at 5-4, having held the second-best team in the league to a season low. That is not luck. That is a team that found out exactly who it is the moment things got ugly. Clark wants the MVP. The Fever want the title. And right now, the only people still calling this a rivalry are the ones who did not watch the game. So I want to hear it. Are you Team Clark or Team Reese? Drop it below.